Works for me.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like we have a full attendance. Do you have any guests, I see? Doesn't look it.
Who's Town of Southampton boards and committee? Oh, that's you.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, that's me tomorrow at 4 or Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Janet, thank you for setting this up. I still don't have that access. I don't understand, but. Okay, I think we should start with our little announcement that this meeting is on Zoom because of the COVID-19 coronavirus as authorized by Governor Baker's order that Town Hall is closed. Let's remember that this meeting is being recorded, and it is recording. I'm just checking that now. So this is a public document. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. I don't see anyone attending other than us four, no members of the public, although that's later on the agenda, so we'll ask it again. Right. We'll jump right into it then. Let's talk about, we have our call to order. Let's look at the minutes from the previous meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review those?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any comments or corrections?
Additions?
If none, a motion to accept the minutes as provided. So
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
a second? All right. So I think we have to do roll call in video, I believe. So
I'll do Kane A or whatever.
yay or A works.
Yay or A.
Kaneki, I guess.
Oh, I works too, right?
Yeah, Steele, I'll also go with I.
All right. We have 2 I's and an A. It all works.
I must be Canadian or something, you know?
Hey.
A.
All right. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, so we have updates from the previous meeting minutes. We'll start with Brian, Valley and Hilltown CDC.
Yep. So I have little progress to report. Mr. Laschetti and I have been, that's Paul Laschetti, the executive director, for anybody who doesn't know. We've been communicating by email. At this point, he is aware of what we're hoping to accomplish. And I can actually read you a little section of what I sent to him. But the takeaway is that we've exchanged several emails trying to set up a phone call. And it looks like he wants to do that next week. So I don't have anything to update you there. But what I specifically asked him was if they're able to help with overlay districts, CPA fund expenditure guidelines, the potential establishment of an affordable housing trust, and the identification of developable town-owned land parcels. And as far as Valley CDC is concerned, I sent an email to, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I think it might be Locklear. I sent her a very similar email asking for input on those matters, and I've not received a response yet. So I will say those efforts are ongoing at this point, but so far unfruitful. I know that Jim, you said that you know both of them or are on a first name basis with them. Is that the case?
No, it was the director of community action. I know.
Oh, okay. So I'm misremembering. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met with Paul one time, but could you
We did
tell
meet
me
with Paul.
the email that you sent to them, so just so I can gather all the things
Yeah, sure thing.
rattled off for the minutes?
Sure thing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Very thorough, Brian. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, we keep pushing the stone up the hill, right?
Yes, sir.
Chuck, CPA funding availability. I think you were going to talk to Virginia. Is that correct? Virginia
Yeah,
Ahern?
I did shoot her an email to ask her how much money there was actually in the account because I was more curious. But there's when I sent her the email, it was October 20th. So it was about $362,328.13 in that account for the Housing Authority.
How much was that again, Chuck? I'm sorry.
$362,328.13.
Okay.
No small amount.
No. Now, she said that there's going to be we're going to receive a state grant, which is about 10% in November, which is now. And I didn't get that exact. Now, I didn't get the number because it was back in October. So I didn't see a reason, and I don't know exactly how much, but I can't imagine, it'd be a percentage. But also, I asked her what the steps were if we were to, if we had a project. And it's basically what I figured it was. I actually shot her an email asking her what the steps were, and basically, it's if you have a project, you bring it to community preservation. They look over the project and they present it to the town meeting. It's basically the same as we did other projects for community preservation.
So timing is key because we don't meet every week as a town. Yeah. I mean, it'd be one of those things where if we have a project, it'll be one of those, you go to community preservation, it'll be probably a couple meetings. It's not going to be just like one meeting where you give the money for X. So we'll probably have a couple meetings for community preservation and then bring it to town meeting. And whenever that town meeting is going to be, is when it's going to be approved or not. So I'm assuming, Chuck, this committee, the Housing Authority, would have a joint meeting with community preservation to this kind of thing, or minimally, probably similar to what we're thinking about doing with the planning board. We would join their meeting on an agenda item for them to present our.
Yeah, Jim, I just, I worked with Parks for the pickleball courts, and basically there's a form that has to be filled out and submitted to community preservation. So
a form? What is this? The federal government? I do that all day. Fill out forms. We got to fill out another form.
It makes it better than having to have everybody wait for a meeting or can't make the conflict. So
plus it creates a document to record it. So
and they may want to know something more about how much we need, and it's going to need a few more details and probably what we have.
It's funny, when I shot an email to Virginia, the first thing he says, well, we can put you on the agenda for November or December. I'm like, hold on. I just trying to get the idea what how to proceed. But she was very excited about, they have the money, they want to spend it. It's just, we got to, go through the process.
Well, I think I would embrace her enthusiasm, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but I think, to Chuck's point, is, we'll certainly embrace her enthusiasm, but, we need to have something that we're actually going to be, we need the specifics of what we're going for, we've talked about creating a housing trust, how do you administer that, whatnot, but I mean, that would be something specific. Or if we had a specific piece of land, again, that would require a housing trust. So I love the enthusiasm, and we can nurture that. But I feel, maybe I'm wrong, that we're a ways away from any specific request.
Okay, I guess I thought the purpose of this initial one was to ask about covering leasing and rental expenses with people during COVID. I thought that was this initial, request.
It was my understanding that we were going to, rather than raid the CPA, we were going to go after existing CARES Act funds.
I don't think $6,000 is going to get us very far.
Actually, I would, based on the feedback I got from Community Action, that the town of Amherst, which has a huge amount of apartments, they requested $250,000, but so far have only spent $40,000. We're a much smaller town with far fewer units. So maybe we can segue from Chuck into
my presentation, which is feedback from Community Action. Well, first of all, Community Action they do it for Amherst, they do it for Hadley, and they're willing to do it for us. The details I don't understand. Do we, as a town, do we create a contract with them? That I need to learn, how that works. But it's one thing we know is that we're not trailblazers in this. Other towns already do it, so there's a template out there how it works. But again, they want to know our numbers. How many rental units? It's really about rental assistance, not so much mortgage assistance.
Right.
And we have to remember too that while we can, because of the pandemic, we can anticipate, especially if it gets worse, which it seems likely, that there's going to be some real people in need. There are those two programs which I mentioned to you, RAFT and IRMA, the latter for mortgage assistance, the former for rental assistance, that already exist through the state and already have received additional funds through CARES Act. So folks who are struggling with their rent, et cetera, and those for their mortgage do have an option. So our efforts locally, similar to Amherst, Hadley, or whatever, would be for those folks who either fall in the cracks or the raft isn't sufficient. So we'd be supplementing that. So estimating that is really about, according to Community Action, I need to contact them to, we're working on a schedule where we both can meet, but they can help us estimate a dollar amount based on our number of units and how many of those are affordable. And to Brian's point, we have 1.9% of our total housing is affordable, but how does that come out into like hard numbers?
So are you saying that we can, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, that's right. I believe it's less than 50 units. I think it's somewhere in the area of 50 units that are considered affordable.
I thought it was 41, actually.
You know what? You're probably right. Yeah. It's certainly not much higher than that.
Right. So that's probably a close enough, even if 41 isn't exactly right, a close enough estimate. I'm pretty sure Wayfinders, Janet Wright, administers those. We could call them and confirm, but that gives.
We can check with the assessor's office as well.
Yeah. But I'm certainly, I'm going to try to meet with Wayfinders, Community Action point of contact either tomorrow or Wednesday, but I can use a number 40 to 50, and that's going to be in the ballpark of affordable units. I don't know how many total apartment units we have in town.
It's less than 300, I believe. If folks want to give me a second, I can go grab, I have a hard copy of one of our recent housing assessments. I believe it's in another room, so I'll go grab that and come back.
Awesome. Brian, he's on a roll. Okay.
He's on a mission.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I'll confirm with Community Action, but it seems like the assistance that can be offered is for rentals, not necessarily for mortgage. IRMA covers the mortgage. I guess what I'm saying is with those kind of numbers, if Brian's memory is correct, is about 300 total units with maybe 40 to 50 are classified as affordable. If we get, Community Action recommended, 2,000. I wrote to Ed and I said, how about 5,000 the CARES Act fund? If we spend that money over the course of this winter, because the fiscal year ends, June 30th, right?
Well, my understanding is that the CARES fund right now expires in December, at the end of December. I think the town is hoping that they'll extend it beyond that deadline.
Is that the spending of the CARES money or the?
That's my understanding.
Really? I thought it was when you. From
Chris is what I understand it.
Really? So even more so, if that's true, I mean, we got to turn this around fast. If that's the case. We may not.
Extended, but I mean, that's another COVID.
Hopefully it'll be extended.
Yeah.
But let's assume even it extends into the spring, a few $1,000s when you look at 40 or 50 units plus you have raft, could go a long way. That's what, and again, that's based on the numbers in Amherst. I don't know the total number of units in Amherst and how many are affordable, but it's a college town. There's a lot of apartments, and they've only spent $40,000.
So did you see Chris's email? Jim, you may not have been able to see it since she said they designated 6,000.
Great.
Okay.
Great. I didn't see that. When she sent that today?
Late. Yeah, probably an hour before the meeting. So you were in the car.
Sorry, I just got home. So, well, that's good. So $6,000. I mean, yeah. Okay. So anyway, the bottom line is community action. The woman's name is Jana, who's going to be the point of contact for us. She and I are trying to work out a schedule where we can meet. She was off last Friday. I can do it when I'm working from home. I have to, obviously, like all of you, I can't conflate my work time with this time. But Jana's been very flexible. If it doesn't work out, she's willing to meet in the evenings and whatnot. So I fully expect to meet with her this week to learn and iron out the details. Like I said, I don't know anything about this as far as community action. They're a nonprofit, but they need to, I'm sure there's some kind of a fee for administering. And I don't know if it's per dollar administered or how that works. So that is my report from community action.
I have just a question, Jim? Do they only help with affordable housing as their nonprofit organization?
That was kind of implied, although she did ask for total number of units. So I think it was only implied in the sense that folks who are in an affordable unit are traditionally more vulnerable to these extremes and so that's how they estimate the volume of work they're going to see. I don't believe it's limited to HUD designated affordable, but that's a question I'm going to ask. It's a good question.
Well, I can tell you that I haven't found a specific number, but there's all sorts of information that we could use to determine a ballpark figure. Like, for example, it says that there are 5 parcels in town that contain apartment buildings. And so I live in one, and there's about 60 units. And so there are at least 60 rental units. But I would be very surprised if this were not the largest one in town. And if I'm not mistaken, it probably is. So I would say based on that, fewer than 300 is an honest estimate that we could pass along.
I think that's true. Even we know there's no more 60s, but even if you estimate a high, 6 times 60 is what, 360. We know that's not true. So yeah, I think that's a fair. Okay, that's helpful. All right. Also, I was charged with confirming how we can collaborate with the planning board. Paul Demon is the chair of that board as far as considering like overlay districts and whatnot. And he's very willing to work with us, similar to what I just described as far as how we would work with the CPA as far as, attending one of their meetings and being on the agenda. We would do the same with the planning board. And let me confirm when he said they meet. I think it's first and third Wednesdays, but I'm going to confirm that. So, once I confirm it, I'll ask you folks about your availability. Of course, I have too many emails to find anything. Patience with me, please.
That's right.
Trying the search option, but of course it doesn't work. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, that's right. I think that earlier we heard the dollar amount that's in the CPA fund. Can I have that repeated?
Yeah, the amount that's in there that I got was $362,328.13.
Okay, 362. Okay, thank you.
And the number is probably going to go up. Well, it is going to go up, but
Right.
I don't have the exact number because it goes up often.
And Chuck, that number is not, that's money available to the housing authority specifically, because not all CPA money can go to the housing authority. Is that correct?
Correct. This is all for the housing authority only.
That's a lot of money.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's 10% of what you would pay into your community preservation.
It's like a pretty comfy subject.
Mhm. Yep. All right. Sorry, folks, I'm having trouble finding my agenda. I'm jumping around. So the housing authority meets on the first and third Wednesdays. I'm about to jump to my town government to see what time.
You mean planning board person?
Planning board, I'm sorry. We're the housing authority. Thank you very much for that point of clarification. 7 o'clock. So they meet first and third Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. And it's just a matter of me emailing Paul and saying, we'd like to join you on this meeting, and we'll get a Zoom invite and we can join them. So my thoughts on that are sooner than later, but, I'd like to, kind of solidify our ask about this a little bit. I feel I'm ready to receive more education in history. Like, we could go there and say, we'd like to look at an overlay district, and this is our objective. We'd like to talk to you about, well, for me, that's the primary thing, is the overlay district, but also maybe we could talk about, I don't know if the planning board, or no, that's probably the zoning board of appeals that does, that gives permission, for example, to build on a lot, for example, that's smaller than is permitted by town code. I think that's the zoning board. So just thinking in terms of the planning board, if we were to attend their next meeting, let's just say, I would want to propose that we're very interested in creating an overlay district, maybe two. One that focuses on allowing for a mixed commercial and residential development, and another that allows for smaller building lots, less frontage, and talk to them about that, and we're not necessarily talking about the entire town, but we're talking about an overlay district, a certain area, and what's their experience with that, if any? What's their experience with trying to change, zoning? What do they know about overlay districts? Are they open to it? Et cetera, et cetera. But I really want to know what you guys think, that's just me and my thoughts. Start with education, but what do you folks think?
I think Janet's trying to talk, but you're muted.
You're muted, Janet.
That was because my phone was ringing and my dog is barking. Go upstairs right now. Go.
I have barking dogs here. No worries.
No, no, I said more education for me because, I think, whether anyone has tried this in the past. I know maybe you know that, Jim, I don't know, but, and I think anytime we want to do a zoning change, it has to go in front of the town, because I remember when the Dunkin' Donuts thing was going through, had to be approved by the town to go from, to go to commercial from residential.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a process. Yeah.
It's a process. So some of it is process related education for me, and some of it is historic education.
right? I think that sums it up better than I did. I agree. That's Brian or Chuck, do you have similar or additional?
I have the similar thing. I need more. I need education a bit more. I mean, I'm thinking if I'm just trying to figure out, is it going to be a section of town we're doing overlay, or is it the whole town, or how is it?
Well, that's why maybe we discuss it here before we go to the board, so we present as unified. For me, when I went to a lecture that was given by the state on overlay districts, and I have the material somewhere, but basically they were designed for certain parts of a town, not the whole town. And so because they were more palatable that way, but they also, it kind of makes sense with what the spirit of what an overlay district is. So, for example, if we were looking at an overlay district that would promote the combination of commercial and residential, and what that means, you'd probably be looking along the Route 10 corridor. You wouldn't have a commercial residential district, way out on Russellville Road or something. That doesn't seem to make sense, or Crooked Ledge, something like that. And maybe even similar with the lot sizes, in the sense that, although I'm more open to that, but smaller lot sizes way out in the middle of nowhere. Well, I guess that could work because you see it all the time. I think, for example, we've all been by these developments that were built after World War II and in the 50s, lots of ranch houses. Speaking of dogs barking, lots of ranch houses, and we've got a couple in town, much smaller scale. Again, across from Dunkin' Donuts, there's that little neighborhood, which is where I used to live, and I think of Mountain View Circle. Would those work out in the middle of nowhere? The more I think about it, why not? Because it's still, you're still looking at a strictly residential, and you're still looking at, in this town, needing to have a car. You don't have to necessarily be close to a transportation hub to make that work.
No, there is no transportation hub in
Right. Well,
another problem, so.
right. If I know that PVTA will come out to Big Y, so
Stops there.
that's the transportation hub.
Well, there are a few pieces of land that are for sale, not far from Big Y, right down the way, in fact. And so one of them, I believe, is a commercial property, and the other is a residential property. And so if we were to propose making both of them a mixed-use property, then it would improve the opportunity for us to meet some of these goals. So that could be one actual idea that we present.
Right. So those are the properties on Coleman.
No, the property's on College Highway, right? Yeah.
Yes.
They're very wet, just so the land.
Oh, those properties.
Yeah.
We talked about that before. I think, Janet, you mentioned those because we were all scratching our head. I can't imagine what could go there that's gonna perk, frankly.
There was a house there that I think got flooded or something, and then that's when they tore it down and put it on the market, all commercial. So.
I wonder if $362,000 could buy some, flood protection. I don't know how much that costs, to change up the land a little bit. But, another idea is that it's close to the Easthampton town line, so it's not inconceivable that maybe they could extend the town sewer down there. It's my understanding that some of the businesses in that area have sewer connections to Easthampton, and they just pay a fee. Right. So, we could potentially talk about that, or we could use some of that money. A new septic system for a 4-bedroom house is probably, I might be showing my ignorance. I don't know, but $5,000, $10,000 for all of these units here. It might be, $100,000, but then we still have $262,000 left.
We have the one thing we have is money, which not every town has. And so there's no sense in hoarding it. I'd like to get some bang for it, I think. We don't want to spend it all on just one unit, for example. But to your point, Brian, we have assets that we can consider.
And so I think some of the logistical challenges that come up with any piece of property we identify can be met with some of those resources. I think that some of these problems we can just solve and that they're not insurmountable.
Yeah,
We certainly have the means to look at it anyway.
yeah, I can try to see, I don't know the exact address, but we can pull the, because it's not just wet, but I think the Manhattan River, so it may be protected wetlands there as well, depending on the depth. So I'd have to find that out,
Right.
not just the flooding stuff.
But to Brian's point, other properties come open for sale. And with those kind of significant assets that we have, conceivably, we could, even look at paying market rate for something that we can then promote, affordable units on. Because as a developer, to make money, they have to buy the property and then they have to build on that and make money off of it. If the developer doesn't have to buy the property,
Right.
then they can make their money elsewhere. And that's where, as our goal is to say, all you need to do is build, but you need to build to these specs. Kind of thing.
Right. And so if we were to bring a plan to the planning board that said, these two parcels on College Highway, we'd like to make these two parcels into an overlay district. If that were successful, then we could theoretically purchase it and market it to a developer of a mixed-use property.
Right. And to Chuck's point, procedurally, and Janet, you said this too, those properties may stay there for a long time because they may not, independently have value. But we certainly don't need to be wedded to them, because if we're looking at either and simultaneously, creating a trust so that we can buy properties as a housing authority, and we're looking at creating a district so that we can develop as we want to as a housing authority, which requires, approval before a town hall meeting, et cetera. We're looking at some time. So those two properties on College Highway are interesting and we should keep an eye on them. But I think by the time we get to a point, the way it has to work, they'll probably be gone.
They haven't moved.
Right.
They haven't moved. So they may not be that attractive to regular builders. So maybe they would work because they haven't moved for other reasons.
Right.
Maybe it's something that,
Right. The money, to Brian's point, the money we have, you inject that into that, and then it changes for a builder, changes the outlook, because it takes a piece of land that's essentially not buildable and makes it buildable, perhaps. I don't know enough about this. Kind of wish we had a builder on the housing authority, because, flood control is one thing, but, you have to perk, or to your point earlier, Brian, if you can tie in with the sewer. But I forget where it ends now. I could look, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, we looked at all of this when we were looking at how to grow commercial. It only goes so far down the highway. So once you try to extend the sewer line, then you're talking about a real big expense. It's one thing if it's already in the street and you're hooking up. But if you're extending down the street, that's some big money. And most sewers, they're gravity fed too. So as I recall that topography, after the Polish credit union starts dropping down again toward the river there. So sewer's not going to run uphill without a pump. So even if, that's probably why, if my recollection is correct, the sewer doesn't go down that far, because it stops being gravity fed at that point. So you're looking at a significant expense to, if I'm right, running it down the street and then, installing a pumping system to get it down the line.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might be best to identify several possible project sites and address challenges like that with each one, and go to the planning board with sort of an honest assessment of each. So here is the 2-parcel idea on College Highway, but here's why it might not work. But look at this other idea over here. It might be good to have 2 or 3 ideas.
Well, let me ask you this. Are we jumping too far? In other words, should we go to the planning board soon with just the idea of creating these districts, and then we continue to work with them down the road? So if we're successful, for example, in creating an overlay district for a smaller lot size, and we're successful for creating an overlay district for commercial residential, and we keep working with them, now we're ready to, okay, now we've got the means. We can buy properties and we can talk to them, about this. I mean, we can give them examples, but if it seems to me, once we do it, it's a big uphill, believe me, but if we can get those overlay districts in place, then we're free to go ahead. We don't really need to. I don't know if we're going to need to convince the planning board about an overlay district. Maybe we will. And if we do need to convince them, to your point, Brian, then having some examples ready, I think is a good idea. But in my opinion, I don't know that we need to explain to them what we're thinking in order to get those districts established or to get them convinced. I mean, I suppose it's always better to be prepared than not. So if we go to a planning board meeting soon and we're explaining to them what we want to do, and they say, well, give us an example. What would you do? What do you mean by that? Having something, I guess, to your point, and more than one option. Yeah, I get it now.
So I can try to get some information on that property, either from Darcy Gasparini, who's on the assessors with me, but also works for Taylor Real Estate. So who the listing agency.
Nice.
Maybe she can give us a little background on it, so I can ask her for some. And then we can probably get the property map from Martha, or just go online and get the property map and see what the depth of it is, and see if there is some protected wetlands there, because the Manhattan River kind of runs behind it. So then we'd have to find out from conservation what we're allowed to do there, I guess, or any builder would be allowed. Because there's a reason it hasn't sold, I think, but maybe
Right.
maybe sewer is one, And I know I've been trying to get information from Ed, and I've been going through the special town meeting warrants, trying to find the name of the company that owns the property next to the former Opa. I've been striking out, but I'm not done with that effort yet to see what they're planning on doing. I think Ed said he had the name of the real estate company that they had dealt with, but he didn't have direct contact with American, and I can't remember the company name, but I can probably get that. I was hoping to get a person's email to talk to, so I'm still working on that.
So folks, I still think that even minus those kind of details, I feel we can go to the planning board and say what our intent is to build these, to create these overlay districts. Our intent is to, obviously, to create more affordable units in town. And through the, commercial residential combination, you allow for that to take place in a small space. You have a retail unit on the first floor and affordable units on the second floor, for example. And the other overlay district with the smaller lots just allows for smaller homes and smaller lots. I don't know that we need a lot of examples to explain our intent.
No, I agree with that. I agree.
Yeah.
The first step, right? Yeah.
Right. Because we have no idea what they're going to say. I mean, there may be a lot of reasons why in their opinion, it's not a good idea, or there might be some history there where this is tried before, and that doesn't mean we don't try again. But to Chuck's point, education, I think, is for us is going to be really important. It's like a 30,000-foot view from them as a starting point.
My thinking is just where exactly would we put the overlay? That's really the only thing I'm
Yeah.
thinking. And that's why I need the education.
Right. If they ask us for that kind of specifics, for me, the commercial residential overlay would pretty much be along College Highway.
Unless they have recommendations.
Right. But the kind of thinking, I thought similar for the smaller lots, but I'm rethinking that. Because again, I think of all those developments I'm familiar with built, after World War II in the 50s. If you're familiar with Northampton, you're familiar with the Ryan Road area. I mean,
yeah.
I'm old, but I'm not that old. Those were built even before I was born. But my understanding is that was all just farmland out there. It was nothing. And it was all built up. And again, I'm repeating myself, but in our town, much smaller scale, but Lynn Drive, Mountain View Circle. Why couldn't you have one of those out on Crooked Ledge? So what? I don't see a reason why not, other than there's the perception, perhaps from neighbors, that somehow diminishes their property values. But I think if we can work with the planning board and create some overlay districts, we're going to have that issue regardless when we go to town meeting. There's going to be resistance. And that's where we would be educating the populace.
I mean, there's certainly lots for sale on Fomer Road by Crooked Ledge.
Mm-hmm.
But
right. So wouldn't it be interesting, one, if we have the money, we get a housing trust or whatever, with them and the means to actually, for the town to safely buy those lots, for example. And then if there were an overlay district that allowed, as the owners of the property, the housing authority, we could demand that 2 units be put on the property, not just one, for example.
Right.
because you look at Pomeroy Meadow, they're putting up the new duplexes on Pomeroy Meadow. Do you come down, do you know where?
I don't know what you're talking about. I go drive Pomeroy Meadow every day.
The new building, so if you're going towards Northampton, it's on the left-hand side.
Oh, I thought that was just a garage and that's a duplex.
That's a duplex.
Yeah.
Well.
And I think there's going to be a second duplex next to it.
So are those built market rate similar to the Pomeroy condo units that are further down by the school? Those 1-story?
I don't know.
Yeah. But that's interesting because, you sometimes get resistance to duplexes because we talked about this, if you build a cul-de-sac with 3,000 square foot homes, you could include an affordable unit there by building a duplex. It would blend in with the neighborhood. Because otherwise people say a duplex doesn't look right in that neighborhood. But if we're building essentially duplexes in town that are market rate, that are probably going to be high end, that waters down the argument that, we don't want duplexes in town.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of right on Pomeroy Meadow Road.
Yep. I didn't realize that's a duplex. Okay.
So there'll be 2 duplexes.
2 of them there.
2 sets of duplexes, yeah.
Yep. So what do folks think? I don't want to rush this and hear all your thoughts, but should we, so first and third Wednesday, we don't have time for this week, but the 18th of November, 7:00, I could email Paul Deeman and say, we'd like to join you, be on your agenda. And essentially we would speak about our wants, our dreams. We want more affordable housing, and we imagine we can do it like other towns by having an overlay district. One would be commercial residential, and the other would be, a way to allow builders to build on smaller lots. And hear what they say. Does that work for you guys?
I think that's a fine idea.
Yeah. Can I also share one other, there was an article in the Gazette.
Yeah, saw that.
Did you?
But I know what you're talking about.
The Sunderland, if Sunderland can go and get a grant and build a senior housing project, why can't Southampton? This just drives me crazy. So,
Are you able to send that article along?
if you, Jim, can you let me share? I'm just going to bring it up for a
Sure.
second, just to give everybody a lookie.
So how do I let you share?
I think when you go down to the bottom where it says share screen, there should be a button that says others or some, next, if you click by share screen, because I don't have it. Let me just see. Let me see if I can.
Right, so you don't have the share screen option, because when I click on it,
I think you just somehow gave it to me. So there it is. So this is,
Great, okay.
they got 6.9 million from the state. So I know we each try to even work with our little bundle of funds, but Rural Development Inc., I haven't, I guess if we wanted to do something like this, and I don't know a lot about it, and I don't have it, I have it in hard copy, Brian, to tell you the truth. I don't have it. I don't know if I can I may be able to copy and paste this and send it someplace. But it was an overall $13 million project. And now, is there Franklin County Regional Housing and Redevelopment Authority? These are,
right.
I don't know.
So that's like Hilltown CDC, I think.
Okay.
I think.
And a tax credit investment. So and other funding, 100,000 from community preservation.
Right.
And they're getting this huge project. I mean, I don't know how people feel about it in Sunderland, but I mean, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, Brian, and check.
Well, you can see the years involved in this, which doesn't mean we don't start, believe me.
Right,
but this is a long haul.
Yep.
But, I think when we spoke with Paul Luschetti back in the day, Janet, he talked about this, that this is a long-term effort. But you can make it happen. But you have to establish like these development funds, and then you can seek matching grants. I'm curious to know, like Jan and I learned when we talked with Amherst, does Sunderland have, a paid housing authority, or does their town administrator do that? Who has the knowledge and the wherewithal? Or do they have a volunteer board like us?
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine a little town of Sunderland has paid.
I can't either, but they're not as small as us.
They're not?
No, I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought there were like 10,000 people in Sunderland, no?
3,650.
Wow. That's how much I know. They're smaller than us, much smaller.
Smaller than us, yes.
Well, here they have a housing committee, it would appear, rather than a housing authority. If folks like, I can reach out to them and see if I can get any insight into, how they got that money.
Absolutely, because
it also looks like, if I can just, it looks like Laura Baker from Valley CDC is the person quoted here. So it could be that I didn't reach out to the right person. So I'll reach out to Laura Baker instead and see if she's able to help us.
Great.
yeah. Why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. I mean, we see different communities doing different things, and it's like,
Frustrating.
Yes, thank you. That's a good word.
And I think, Brian, you can go to gazettenet.com. I think they give you a free article.
Yeah, free, yeah.
I'm just gonna have to get a subscription. I got to buckle down and do that.
Yeah, I just got a free article because I have X number of free articles in a period of time. And
Yeah.
so I just went on to see if it would let me do it for this meeting. So I don't mean to get off topic, but there's, I don't know, how does this fit into, don't we have to have a vision of is this an overlay district? Is this a special zone district? Is this, it sounds like, not only senior housing, but, what's incorporated in it.
Well, it says that the project was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals, which suggests to me either the need for a special permit or it was a 40B. It seems likelier to me that it's a 40B, but that's just my instinct.
Right.
Okay. So I just wanted to share this as another, maybe it's not for the planning board, maybe we don't know enough about, it's just how do we not recreate the wheel, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it, Janet, because I saw the article and I made a mental note, but because I have no capacity to store things anymore, then forgot about it. So, bringing it up here is really important because, and Brian's willing to get out his journalist veins again and go dig in. That's great.
So yeah, it shows on their housing committee, and I don't know if there was a housing committee for this project or if they have, and here's, but it went in front of the select board back in 2017. So 2.5 years ago, it got approved. So interesting. So you don't need this, Brian. I can try to copy.
Yeah, it will be fine if you were to close it out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll stop my share. But every time I see one of these articles, I'm like, how, is it grant and who does the research and what's RDI and an affordable senior housing project, whether it's affordable senior housing or affordable housing or, little communities smaller than us are getting big bucks to do this.
Yeah.
And maybe the location has to be step number one. So I guess that's.
I suspect, Janet, for me, it seems to me like they were prepared and then this property came for sale.
Yeah.
Like they have a committee and they've been working with their local planning board. So when something comes up, they're going to get approval. They've been working with the town. I think there's a lot of groundwork. I suspect it didn't work like, oh, here's some property for sale. Okay, now we're going to put this all together.
Yeah.
I believe it was just the opposite.
So they have different attachments with progress updates on their website, and 120 North Main Street. So it's right. They do have more of a village, I think, than we have.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I just saw that, and
it's a real success. There are examples around. We know that. Like I said, there's Westhampton Woods, which was developed privately.
Right.
There's the senior housing in Goshen, which we've talked about. So there's a number of people we've talked about. As I recollect, Paul Lassetti also said that he could help us connect with the people from Goshen, and they were involved in that project, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Built
That's
out.
about, yeah.
So, right. I think we just need some further guidance on how to get started.
So if they bought the property first, or who bought the property, I'll do a little research too, Brian, and from they've got lots of documents on their website under housing. So,
Okay, great.
okay. And again, so that's.
Must be night before an election. The phone's ringing off the hook.
Vans.
I already voted already.
Yeah. So I will email. It sounds like we're all coming up with some to-dos for our next meeting. I will email Paul Deeman and propose that we put on their agenda for November 18th at 7 p.m.
Okay, then I have to post a meeting as well.
Actually, I don't think so.
Because we're having a joint meeting and we have a quorum, and we have to have it posted as a joint meeting.
We're not joining their meeting on their agenda, where it's a joint meeting.
Well, I think if we have a quorum and we're going to deliberate about anything as a group, even if it's with the planning board, for open meeting law, I think we still have to have a posted meeting. And it would be just with the planning board, you know.
You're probably right. I don't know, honestly, my ignorance. I can include that in my email to Paul, because I'm sure others have joined in the past saying, what do we need?
And you know, when we've been on finance, if we go to select board meeting on the finance committee, it's, you have to post both meetings.
Okay, so it's not,
I have history.
You know.
I'm not making it up, I promise.
All right. No, I confess my ignorance. Okay, you know, then yes, please. Let me confirm with Paul before you post anything.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to post until I hear from you, Jim, for sure.
All right. Thank God someone on this committee knows what they're doing. Certainly it's not me.
I'm good with logistics. That's
right.
my limit of knowledge. After that, I'm lost. Too many.
Brian, Chuck, you heard that. It's been recorded. She's good with logistics.
That's what I heard.
No good deed will go unpunished, Janet. All right. I don't want to be rushed, but it is 7. Before we talk about, you know, a next meeting date for ourselves, maybe our next meeting date is just the planning board, or do we want to also set a next one for ourselves afterward to discuss?
Well, we usually do first Monday of the month, right? So maybe it'd be 2 weeks after the planning board meeting. What do you think?
Pearl Harbor Day?
Is that what it is?
November
December
3rd.
7th.
Oh,
You're talking about November, or yeah. So that would be December. Yeah, December 7th. You said, yeah.
So we would be able to follow up on our to-dos, including what we learned from the planning board.
That means we just have to. So we have until, my understanding from Chris Files, we have until December 31st to spend $6,000. So my question is, does having a meeting on December 7th accomplish that?
Well, in my opinion, we don't need to meet on that anymore, because if we have $6,000, I can report that to Community Action tomorrow or Wednesday when I meet with them, understand the logistics, and I believe we can take a vote tonight to see if that's what we want to do as a committee, but that can happen independent of these other things we're talking about.
Okay, good. I just don't want to leave the meeting without that action item and.
Right. Well, to your point, Jen, I think we should vote on that. You know, I don't know how to.
Yeah. And I'm not sure.
Maybe you could put that into a motion, you know, but essentially what we're trying to do is just proceed with Community Action to implement that program at $6,000 committed, something like that, a motion like that.
So, but can I ask a question first?
Sure. Yes.
I guess I would just want to confirm with Ed that once it's been submitted, it's just an approved amount, because he submitted the whole package for all the different departments in town. So, and we have this money, so I'm assuming that it's available. We don't have to wait for the state to get back to us or the federal government to get back to us to approve it. So,
well, even if we don't know that for certain, it's, in my opinion, a good question. We could always vote here on the assumption that it's going to be made available, and I could always start working with Community Action on the assumption. And if it blows up or the amount is different, we don't control that. But to your point, you know, December 31st is right around the corner. I don't want to wait much longer to get this going.
you said that they needed to know the number of rental units in town, approximate, and anything else that they need to know from us?
An amount. So I told them to be between $2,000 and $5,000. It looks like it's $6,000. And those two things, total number estimate rental units and total number of estimated affordable units, which we have, I think, some solid estimates to give them.
Okay, good. So I make a motion that we have designate Jim to move forward with community action in implementing a affordable rental program for those people that are impacted by COVID. I'm stuck. And need assistance in payment of their rental payment. Anybody want to wordsmith that? Make a motion to give Jim the authority to work with community action in the implementation of
a rental assistance program, you could say, very.
Rental assistance program for those people that have been impacted by COVID. It has to be COVID related, so.
Correct.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Kane, aye.
Kaki, aye.
Seal, aye.
Sini, aye. Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay. All right. I think we have our marching orders. Hopefully our next meeting will be a joint meeting on November 18th at 7 p.m. And then our next meeting as a housing authority singularly will be on December 7th at 6 p.m. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I love it. Are there any additional items or for discussion, or did I miss any agenda items? I don't have it on my screen all of a sudden.
I don't think so.
Is that it? All right. This is an efficient group. An hour is a good time for a meeting. What's the old standard? Adults' attention span is about 50 minutes. So we push that a little bit, not too bad.
I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, given that it seems like we've wrapped this up, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion. Oh, there you go. Second.
All right.
Kane, aye.
Kaki, aye.
Steel, aye.
Sini, aye. I think we've got this head count voting down. Good for us.
We're very alphabetical.
Yeah. Thank you all. I'm getting excited. You know, we're making some progress here, and I appreciate the energy and people willing to jump in and do things. So we'll move a stone up a hill. Ready? Here we go.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Don't forget to vote if you haven't voted yet.
Vote, vote, vote. All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.